Good evening. The Department of Conservation has decided to prosecute the operators of the Blackhead Quarry just south of Dunedin. The regional manager, Julian Rodder, says an information has been laid with the District Court in Dunedin under the Harbours Act. The quarry is operated by a subsidiary of Fulton Hogan. The prosecution follows agitation by Friends of Blackhead, a group bent on saving what remains of rock formations on the edge of the quarry above the sea. The group is tonight presenting a 6,000-name petition to the Silver Peaks County. It'll be asked to stop using rock from the quarry on local roads. The fate of Dunedin's historic railway station is hanging in the balance. Discussions going on tonight between the Dunedin City Council and the Early Settlers Association could decide the future of one of the city's prime tourist attractions. Michael Lynch reports.
It's not generally known, but the Railways Corporation has Dunedin's 80-year-old station up for sale to the highest bidder. It's been on offer since early this year, but so far there have been no takers. The price, it's said, is negotiable, and there's a considerable catch. The station has an A Historic Places classification, and any buyer could face $500,000 just to tart up the crumbling Oamaru stone on the facade. And this is where the nearby Early Settlers Museum comes in. Railways wouldn't mind a swap. The museum has plans prepared for a shift to the station, but someone, be it the council or the government, has to take over the $1 million-plus bill. The 1990 Commission has its eye on the station too for a temporary showplace, and this would tie in nicely with the early settlers. But first there has to be that assurance of continuing funding. Exactly where the solitary southerner has stopped seems the least of anyone's worries.
Jim Anderton's new Labour Party is promising to make a mark in the south. The party has just held its first regional Otago Southland conference and has resolved to contest this year's local body elections and to defeat at least one of the sitting Dunedin MPs.
The new Labour Party activists might look few in numbers, but there's no doubting the commitment of people here to what they see as a head-on fight with the Labour Party.
Going on the membership that we have, that Dunedin North and St Kilda we have particular interest in, but also in Dunedin West we're detecting quite a groundswell as well. Those three city seats I think are going to be all equally important for us, and I think we're going to make quite an impact.
It's no secret Stan Rogers' Dunedin North seat is in the firing line. Many of the new party's key members are former Rogers supporters, and the accusation they're splitting the Labour vote doesn't worry them over much anymore.
The Labour government have defeated themselves. We're looking to the future.
But you are splitting that Labour vote, so what you might end up with is national.
Oh, I don't think we're splitting the Labour vote. I think the Labour vote's already deserted the Labour Party, and we're trying to give people another option.
You're sounding very confident.
Oh, we are. We know the reaction that we're getting and what's coming back from people, and it's all good.
New Labour is promising an announcement about mayoral candidates this week.
Southland Rugby may be on the verge of regaining lost prestige after 3 top performances in recent weeks. Southland lost to First Division side Canterbury yesterday, but as Ken Nicholson reports, recent good form against Otago and then the win against France have brought a resurgence of team pride.
21 points against Otago was a fine effort. International wins over Canada and, more importantly, France. Things were certainly pointing towards a resurgence in Southland rugby. So yesterday's match against Canterbury was most important to convince Southland supporters that their team has the ability, and now just as importantly, the confidence to succeed in second division this year.
Certainly the confidence in the side is very good, and there's a good spirit amongst the team because it's young and a lot of the guys come from the same teams, and it's very good, and it's probably the first time Southland have had that sort of team together for a few years.
But the first half yesterday at the Homestead Stadium suggested there was still a great gap between Southland and First Division, as runaway Canterbury winger Paula Barley took his side out to an 11-point lead in just 13 minutes. Playing into a strong wind, Brown led his side out of trouble to keep Canterbury to those 11 points in the first half. And then on the turnaround, Southland rose above its ordinary first half display, promising young 5'8" Simon Culhane finishing off a fine team movement. Then it was winger Bruce Pascoe who showed the benefits to be gained by chasing everything. Who could have thought Robbie Deans and Barley could have botched this up? And Pascoe was in for his 39th try for the province, equalling Ray Todd's old record. Sure, Southland's lead was short-lived as Barley continued his 3-try scoring spree. But in the end, Southland could be more than satisfied with its performance. The final score, 27-16.
It was the curtain raiser to that match that will be remembered as the game that made New Zealand rugby history. It was also between Southland and Canterbury, but there was a very major difference.
It's never happened before, an interprovincial women's rugby game on a major New Zealand ground. But these players from Canterbury and Southland were deadly serious about it all. After all, they were aware that the more traditional diehards of the rugby terraces were dead against it.
It's been mixed, I must admit. Some have been for, some have been against, but I think they've seen the enthusiasm of the girls, and they're certainly keen and they're fit and they're training and they want to play rugby.
But as Canterbury romped away to a 46-0 win, even the most staunch of chauvinists had to admit this rugby wasn't too bad at all. Canterbury is drawn from a competition of 8 teams in Christchurch, and they've already had a tour of Europe up their sleeve. Southland was up against it, not having a local competition at all. But everyone had to admit it, there was plenty of bounce in this historic outing.
More than 800 hardy souls took to stormy southern seas yesterday for the annual midwinter swim. At both Dunedin, St Clair and Invercargill's Oreti beaches, the annual polar plunge is growing in popularity. Michael wasn't one of the hardy souls, but here's what he had to say about it all.
700 frozen feet, or if you like, 3,500 tingling toes, raced across the sands of Oreti Beach yesterday. Midwinter swims are growing in popularity by the year. Yesterday's Oreti effort raised $1,500 for the Southland Hospice appeal and drew the usual reaction from the swimmers to the usual question.
What's it like out there?
Very, very cold.
Oh, freezing. It was quite cold to start off with, but it was lovely.
The organisers of Dunedin's midwinter swim tried to go one better this year, running a sort of top-town relay before the actual public swim. Sports teams, the armed services and various characters did their best to race in, fill up milk bottles and race back. Some did it with a certain style. While all this was going on though, the rest of the swimmers were standing round in the driving drizzle, getting colder. They seemed to vote with their feet, tore off into the water, and another swim was over for another year.
Oh, beautiful! What? Beautiful!
Cold, very cold.
I was waiting, mate, it was so cold.
Yeah.
It was good, very good.
No, I don't think I'll do it again.
Was it colder than you thought?
Yeah.
My body's telling me now that it was exceptionally cold, but the adrenaline was pumping.
All those people sort of egged you on, so you went in there.
I did say the prerequisite for this was to be a sandwich short of a picnic, and I think I've really totally proved it.
It really was one big party. And it raised $450 for Surf Club rescue gear.
Till tomorrow. Good night.